Now, in this video, I just really wanted to cover some basics for using materials and doing shading in Blender. Did want to just cover a few topics that I think would be helpful as you're starting out. The first thing is when you have an object selected, you can go into the materials by going down to this tab, and then from here, by default, you'll probably have this Principled BSDF shader, but you'll also have the ability to choose other ones here for different purposes. If you wanted to change the base color, I think I've shown this before, that you can just do that. And if you don't see the color changing here, it's because you're in the wrong mode again. So you want to at least be on this is the material preview, but you could also see what it looks like with light in the rendered view. Before we go too much further, there's also, I wanted to point this out, that you can open up this preview section to see what this material looks like on various objects. Now, if we want different colored faces on this cube, for example, one thing we could do is create a new material like this. We press plus here, we'll add a new material, and let's say we want it to be a green. Now, what we need to do is assign this material to the whatever face that we want it to be selected to. We'll hit tab to go to edit mode. And from here, you have these different modes, but I'm going to select the face select. And let's say we wanted these two to have that material on it. We can click on material, and then down below, you'll see this option will pop up when you have these faces selected, and you can say assign. And so then this will let you add different materials there to just specific areas, and we could add more colors this way. Again, we're in edit mode to do this, and we hit assign, and we can select different modes if we want to. One thing I do want to call out is when you're in edit mode and object mode, these are going to look a little bit different. The shading might look a little bit different. Be careful of which mode you're in. One thing that was kind of confusing to me moving from Cinema 4D is that these materials, the material that's up at the top is the one that gets applied. And so if we went and changed it to this red material, that's the one that gets applied first, and then these will get applied. Because they've been assigned, they will be applied. But if I made a new material, let's say, and wanted it to be, I don't know, like yellow, it's not actually going to work because the way that these materials are applied. So whatever material is up here is really the one that's, you could think of being applied to the whole object, and then these ones can be added on top if they're assigned. Okay, so there's also, if you want it to be more shiny, you can add, bring up the metallic, and then you can also bring down the roughness for it to be a little bit more reflective. And it's a little bit hard to see with this lighting, but if we went in and let's say we added an HDRI, we can go up to in the scene, change the environment texture, and then open up maybe one of our HDRIs, and you should see that kind of being a little bit more reflective. Let's go back to the material here. Hopefully you're seeing how that might work, and then if you add the roughness in, it kind of gets rid of that reflectiveness. So something like glass or like a really high polished metal might be this, would look like this versus like that. Okay, the other thing, the other way to work with your materials is, there are more options here if you go below, but the other thing you could do is use nodes. So we're going to go in the shading workspace menu. From here, this is the node system for this material or this shader. We can change things by bringing in new nodes. Do Shift A to add more, and we can bring in things like a wave texture. This is going to let us put in bands. You can see it says bands, and you can see that there are these color-coded dots. These are called sockets, and the sockets, they run from left to right, essentially. There's an input socket, which is going to be on the left-hand side, and then an output socket on the right-hand side. And generally, you want to connect these to the same color. You can see that I think this is like a shader to shader. This has a color value. It's yellow to yellow. Some of these other ones, like the gray ones, are I believe like a math or a numerical value. Could also be like a black and white value that gets mapped. And so this is me putting in a wave texture from here, and you can see I can adjust the scale, and play with this a little bit. We can add other elements in here. Like if I wanted to change the colors in here, I could add in something called a ramp, a color ramp. A color ramp is essentially a gradient. Now, if I click and drag this and put it in the middle of that connection, it's going to automatically connect them, which is kind of nice. Or you could you can disconnect these, and just to show you, you can reconnect these just by clicking and dragging. Now this is black and white, but this is basically a gradient. So if you change the colors here, you can change the colors of those bands. So if I wanted something colorful, maybe I could do something like that. Now, it's not really being, if you look at it, the texture is being applied a little bit strangely. It's not going on the sides. And this, for something like this, we need to make sure that it's being mapped correctly to the texture. Before I go further, I do want to make sure that for some of the stuff I'm doing, I'm going to be using an add-on called Node Wrangler. And it's really important that you have this, so you can just turn it on like this. And there's a shortcut in Node Wrangler. It's Control T. So I'm going to select this wave texture, and in order to map this correctly, I'm going to hit Control T, and it's going to bring in these and automatically connect them. Now, if you want to move around in your shader menu, it's just like panning around in this screen. So middle button and shift. So middle button shift will also move over. And what you want to do is, you can play around with these. Like if you want it to be like 45 degrees, you could change that here. And it looks like it's kind of moving around. But right now it's using the mapping is being done with a generated mode. And you can see purple to purple. This, I think, is usually vector related, but you can connect the UV here. To give you more understanding about what the UVs are, we can actually switch to UV editing, and you can see for something like a cube, basically what needs to happen is like a 3D object needs to be like almost like skinned into a 2D plane for materials and texturing. So if you took this 3D cube and you splayed it out, it would look something like this. And so the materials, just when we use UV mapping, it's just a different way of mapping onto this 2D surface. You can think of UV as almost like XY mapping. Geometry is kind of like sectioned on this cube. And from here, it kind of messes up the math. But I think if we turn down this, or actually if we put up the scale, I'm gonna maybe do like 5. You can see that now. We also change this around too. Oops. I'll turn it this way, 45. It also kind of messes up some of these, the mappings. It's a little bit different, but this way you can see everything is getting put properly on this object. And this just helps us kind of get the textures onto the object as we want them to be. Now, I think generated or UV are the ones that I would go with. Again, they're going to have slightly different results. It also depends how this 3D object is set up. A cube is really simple, but if you have something more complex, you might see something different. So That's just getting started setting up the node view of the node editing in Blender using the shading menu. Some other textures you might want to try adding if you do Shift A again, go into texture, or you could search for these, something like, let's see, a noise texture. A noise is going to produce kind of random white and black values. So let's take this color and pipe it into here. And it's a little bit hard to see, but if we go in here and adjust the scale, I think you're starting to see it a little bit better. It's kind of like these like splotches. We can use the same mapping and texture node. We'll just click and drag this into the vector for the correct mapping. So that fixes some of the scaling. I probably don't need to go this high anymore. Yeah, and so you can see that the scale is being applied here. That's why we could adjust this. And there's things in here like the roughness or the distortion that you can play with. Another one is like an image texture. Now, we've used these before, but you can open a new image just by hitting open. Or what's nice is you can actually just click and drag an image if you have one. Let's say I have this texture that I want to bring in. I could just click and drag it from Finder. Let me delete this one. And let's hook it up the same way. We'll bring this. We'll keep the same color ramp, I guess, but you can see that that image has now been put on here as a texture. If we want to start remapping it, we could pull a new one there, or maybe we'll just hit Command or Control T again, and that's going to let us scale this. Or let's see, 2. And this is a repeating texture. So when I put the scale up, I can actually get it to repeat like this, and you know I can try to find the right place for that. It's using the UV right now. If we switch the mapping to generated, it's going to be a little bit different. But UV again is this kind of 2D representation of the textures. A lot that you can do with this way of working. This is just a node-based workflow for materials. You can bring more nodes, into all these other sockets as well. But before I switched gears, I wanted to at least show something else. Like right now, I'm using the color ramp to change the color of this. But I can pull. If I wanted to bring my pattern in there, I could go to that, and it's black and white. I could take this off, or I could put this into something like the roughness, which is going to affect the reflectiveness. And now this is a black and white pattern. If we go back to the texture itself, this is what it looks like. And when we bring a black and white image into the roughness, or it's basically the color socket is yellow and this value socket is gray. Wherever it was black, it's going to be 0, and wherever it's white, it's going to be up to 1. So because these things go from 0 to 1. So you can see where it's black, it's actually really reflective because that roughness is at 0. It's it's looking really polished, but where it's white, the roughness you can imagine is up at 1, and it's not as reflective there. So that's one thing to keep in mind as well. And if you have a roughness map of something smudgy or gritty, and you could apply that to a texture to kind of give it that sort of brushed or gritty, maybe used, worn look. But that's one way that you could use some of these other nodes. What I really wanted to just focus on is just getting things like color ramps, or some different things like the wave and noise nodes in here, and then how to map these so that they fit on the texture a little bit better, that you have control over them. So I hope you take some time to play around with making your own materials. But I also think there are so many good resources for materials already out there that'll get you up and running really quickly. So I wanted to show one way that you can start importing materials that are made by other people. This can really save you a lot of time and get your renders looking a lot nicer. It's also, once you start downloading these, you can also deconstruct them and sort of figure out, reverse engineer how they were made. So I'm gonna be using Poliigon to add some materials to my scene. I've already signed in, I logged in. I just used Gmail or my Google account to log in, and we can download the Poliigon add-on, leave the file unzipped, and then just drag it into your Blender to install it. If you want to see more documentation, you can take a look at this to go through how to use it. You can see this is just the drag and install option. You do want to make sure after you install the add-on that you have checked that the add-on is working. So you can look up, I have it right here, it's already checked, but make sure that that is checked on. Otherwise, you won't see it come up on that side. When you install this add-on, you probably want to check the preferences and set up a folder for where all the assets that you download go. So this is a library I've set up, so I'll set that up. Let's see. You can change some of the preferences in here, so you can always come back in here. Now, the default textures, you know, the higher up, we probably don't need to do that unless you're really zoomed in. I think 2K or 1K is probably okay, just depending on how much storage space you have and how powerful your machine is. Those things will also affect render time, so I think maybe we'll just leave these as they are. Once you have installed Poliigon, the Poliigon add-on into here, you can find it from here. If you don't see anything, it's possible this is collapsed, but you can open this up. Now you can log in via the browser. Again, I just used my Google account, so that should be all set up. Login is confirmed. Let's go back into here. What I want to do is navigate. There's different assets here. It's really nice if you have a plan and you have downloads, or you can either use that plan or you can purchase these. Right now, I don't have a plan set up, but there's also models here that you can download. But there is also this free section and HDRIs for your lighting your scene. So there are some that we can just play around with, and I think that's a good start. So we will bring this one in. If you go into these options, you can set up the size of this. If you're really zoomed in, you might want a higher quality version, but either 1K or 2K is probably going to be okay to start with. Okay, so once this is downloaded, all you need to do is click on the object and then hit apply, and then make sure that you're in the right preview mode. And you can see that's been applied to this object. So it's as simple as that. If you go down here, there's more materials. These are just the free items, so you're a little limited unless you pay for an account. But you know, hopefully a good start from here. And then if you want to see what this actually looks like, this has already been brought in, kind of set up for you. And this, even just dissecting this, can also give you a better idea of like how the material is set up. In the last part of this video, I want to take maybe a real-world example of using like a 3D logo and how you might set up a scene with that as one of your elements. And I'm actually going to make the 3D logo with Adobe Illustrator. The new 3D functions can actually export 3D objects that work pretty well in Blender. So I wanted to show how I would go about doing that. I have this PSU GD graphic design logo, and what I'm going to do is select this and then go up to the 3D and materials palette or window, and then you could also get here by going to 3D and materials. And what I'm going to do is do an extrude, and this lets me set the depth. Like this looks a little bit too thick, but that's probably okay. Now there's no bevel on this right now, so right now the edge is really straight. If I want to bevel it, I can turn this on, and then I can put that bevel in there. I can sort of decide how much of a bevel I want. Let's say I only want a little bit. I probably shouldn't mess with the repeat, but I can play around with this a little bit just so it has a little bit more definition in there. And right now it's just beveling the front side, but we could actually have it bevel both sides. It's kind of hard to see. Yeah, but let's look at that. So that's just a little bevel. Select this again. Maybe that's, yeah, maybe I actually want a small width, but yeah, you can see this like bevel around it. And then what we're gonna do is, if we go down to the bottom of this window, you know, this rotation doesn't really matter. I mean, it's helpful to like see this. So if we wanted to see the bevel on the other side, you might be able to see it that way. But what I'm going to do next is go all the way down. You can even add materials here, but I'm not going to add them here because I'm going to do this in Blender. And the lighting also probably won't have an effect on this. Once I close these down, it's a little bit hard to see this when these are all open, but there's something for exporting a 3D object. And you can choose the file formats. It looks like right now, I might have added this in before. I think this might be the default, but I really just need a GLTF. This is just like exporting like a PNG or something. You set the format, and then you'll export it. And then we'll bring this into Blender. I'm gonna open this up, Blender. I'm gonna go import, and here's the asset. I'll import like that. You can see all the different pieces are different meshes. I'm just gonna make this easy and join them all. Whoops, and then I'll hit scale to scale them up. Now this is basically what I'm doing, and I might wanna go in and change the color. If you look at the materials actually for this, there's a bunch of materials here. Maybe I'll delete these all and then just create a new one. And from there you should start to see, yeah. What I want to do now is try to bring in some polygon textures and apply them to this 3D logo. The first thing I'm going to do is get a little bit of light in my scene. I'm going to bring in an HDRI. Let's use this one. So that's lighting my scene. And then I'm going to, actually, I could probably just do it in this mode too. I'm going to go to, make sure I'm selecting the mesh that I brought in. I'll go to Poliigon, and maybe I'll get something like, this is a wood texture, and I've already downloaded it, so all I need to do is hit apply, and you can see that that came in like this. If I want to go in and change this, I can go look into the shader nodes. Like right now, the grain is going vertically, but if I wanted to go horizontally, I can go into, check this out, so there's a texture for the that wood grain, and maybe I'll just go and rotate this 90 degrees. And so now if you look at it, the grain is going horizontally. I have that set up. Let's go back out and maybe add like a brick wall maybe behind it. So I'm gonna grab a plane, rotate it around the x-axis, or I like setting it up in here. I'll just change this to 90. We can scale this up a little bit, maybe 3 and 3 and 3. And I think if you're going to be using these materials, it's good to start with objects that are relatively simple, because maybe like cubes and spheres and planes, just to get a handle on it first. And now I'm going to go and download this brick wall, and make sure you select this plane when you're ready. And then when this is downloaded, I'll just hit apply. There you go. And so I've got that set up. Maybe I'll scale this down a little bit and just, if I want to see what this looks like. Maybe I want to frame this in the camera a little bit better to get it ready to render. So I will just, or I can go up to the camera. This is the camera view, and inside of view, maybe I'll change it to camera to view, and I'll just kind of zoom in, and maybe I just want a kind of straight view like this. And I'll turn this off when I'm ready. And maybe one last thing I'll do is add something for this to sit on. So I'll go to making a cube. And I'll just move this down here. I might want to look at a front view to kind of see what this looks like. Really get that lined up. I'll go back to my camera view here, and then just to review, I'll go and make a material in here. Whoops. I want to go to the cube and set it up a new material, and you'll see that pulls up in here. And maybe we'll add another wave texture. Bring this in. You can see that's set up like that. Oops. Maybe we want to add a color ramp again. Whoops. Color ramp. And if we put it in the middle, it will pop up right there. I'm just going to change the colors on the color ramp. If we bring these closer together, you can get the stripes looking a little bit more solid, less blurry. If we want to add some mapping on it, we can do that just by hitting Control T. And we could move this around if we wanted to. One quick way to change like the scale of this, instead of doing these one by one, is you could actually add in. Let's do Shift A, and we'll look up value. And so this will allow us to plug this node into here, and then we can do 0.5, 0.25. This is maybe a little bit easier to control. We can make the stripes change like this. This could work with any like image texture as well, but so this is a handy way to get that set up. So just to wrap things up, this is what the camera view looks like. Probably want to go in to some of the settings here. I just want one frame. Underneath here, I can go and look at color management, and even adding like high contrast here might make that a little punchier. And again, we want to make sure that we're in, we're going to use cycles for this, so it's going to hopefully be a higher quality render, but it will, take a little bit longer. And here's the final result. I know this is a pretty long video with a lot of little details. I hope this helps you get started with playing around with materials. And like I said, there's so much more to get into, especially in terms of like UV unwrapping or mapping materials onto objects. But at least this, if you play around with some really simple objects, you should be able to try a range of techniques for using materials in Blender.